see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the Northeast Professional Sports. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, the Philly sports guy, Jamie Pags. We'll be having another host coming in as the show progresses. We'll have CJ coming in for the Jets, Keith Angle with the Patriots, and Jim Jefficoat representing the Buffalo Bills. Pags, I guess we start off with you. You're here first, and of course the Eagles are in first place, number one in the NFC, best record in football. And exciting game. Kind of went how you predicted when you were on the Sunday show, saying that the Kansas City Chiefs would jump out fast and probably be ahead in the first half, and the Eagles would come back. So they did. They jumped out to a 17-7 lead. Devontae Swift played a great game for me, all running and catching the ball out of the backfield, making big plays. Hurts scores a couple touchdowns, running on a draw, one play called, and the other one, on, of course, on the tush push. Devontae Smith, he comes through for you. T.J. Brown was kind of held in check. They doubled him all night, so he caught a couple big ones and a touchdown. And statistically, Pags, the Chiefs won that game. And some terrible catching by their wide receivers, especially in the second half. And, the Chiefs had their chance to win, but the Eagles prevail in the end.
Five big drops within the game. Travis Swift, Kelsey, actually had a big fumble. 2 turnovers in the red zone by the Chiefs. That's a big deal. Not only that, but they had number 84. Don't know who he is. I think his name is Watson or whatever. Had a couple of very big drops. But not only that, was there on the 1-yard line, and all he had to do was look up and fair catch the punt, and he would have been able to stop and put them back in the 1-yard line. Instead, they wound up on the 20 because he basketball catched it and it went into the end zone. So all game long, they were having hard times catching the ball. And I know the ball was a little slick, but even still. And realistically, even the interception that was thrown by Jalen Hurts really was taken out of his hands, and they said, of course, he was down by contact. Truth of the matter was, it didn't look like it to me. Like, they showed one angle where it looked like maybe their thighs or their calves touched one another. But truth of the matter was, it didn't look like it to me. So whatever. You needed to make sure they give it the ball. And we did enough to win.
Yeah. I remember that play too. It didn't look live that happened. Let's say good evening to CJ with Jets World and his hot takes, mission statements. I mean, he's quite the character. We love having him on representing the Jets, and we'll definitely get to the Jets right after this. CJ, just giving the Eagles their props, because they are first, and listen, they got Buffalo next week. They can help you guys out by beating them. Buffalo's coming to Philadelphia. Josh Allen seems like they got some kind of game plan where Josh Allen doesn't have to run like crazy and try to make miraculous throws. They kind of checking it down now, getting it out to the running backs and the tight ends. Pags. Will that work against the Eagles defense?
I mean, it's so tight ends seem to do really well However, if everybody's checked down, if it's all check, 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 I don't think that I think that we could possibly prevail. But as I said off the air, I am a little bit more nervous about this game because I look at this as a trap game, and it's funny to say that the Bills being as good as they are, would be considered a trap game. But honestly, I feel like when you come off of Kansas City and you had that kind of circled on your schedule, and then you also have the 49ers, which is another game you have circled on the schedule because all the trash talking they did, you almost may forget about Buffalo. And that's why I say it's a little bit of a trap game. I'm hoping that they are able to you know, do what they need to do and, you know, win. That's all I want.
Yeah.
I don't care how they do it as long as they win.
I listen. I'm all the W is the most important stat at the end of the year, right? Nobody remembers all this other nonsense at the end of the year when the records are there. So
Correct.
one thing I want to ask both of you guys as I bring CJ in after this with the Jets, a lot of fan fighting amongst each other. I haven't seen Buffalo going after Buffalo fans, Eagles going after Eagles fans, Jets. You're there at the stadium, Pags. I mean, you see these. Is this in your area where you're sitting, where all these fans are fighting each other all the time?
I have not seen Eagles fans fight other Eagles fans. So unless there's a video on it, I don't believe it. But there may be. And I 49ers fans are big at doing that. 49ers fans are always fighting each other and stuff like that. Like it's I don't know. To be honest, it never happens around me, and it's ridiculous. As anybody who watched TV, because it was probably one of the biggest, most watched games. Well, I think it was the most watched game in Monday Night Football history. I'm not 100% certain on that, and it's by far the most watched game this year. Was happened on this Monday. And if you were one of those ones that watched it, you saw that I was sitting around a whole bunch of Kansas City Chiefs fans.
Yeah. CJ, maybe it's frustration on those teams. Like Buffalo was having a little frustrations because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. The Jets fans are frustrated, with what quarterback to put in, how they're calling the plays. Maybe that's what's really making fans fight each other instead of fighting the other team's fans.
Well, to be honest with you, within the Jets fan base, there is always infighting, and there are always going to be certain factions of the Jets fan base who feel like that they're superior over others. So, and unfortunately, it's more prevalent, I can't speak for other fan bases, but I could speak for the Jets fan base. Granted, I can only speak for myself. I'm sure there are Jet fans out there that will probably disagree with my opinion, and that's fine. But if you go and take a look at social media, you were to go on any Jets Facebook page, you were to go on any Jets X account, formerly known as Twitter, there are constantly bickering back and forth between fans who just don't agree. Some people who think that their opinion is better than someone else. They think that their opinion is correct and that yours makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So, to me, I just think that when the team is struggling, there's more of a magnification on it because now it's everything is being magnified. Everything is being looked at. Oh, look at how pathetic the fan base is. They can't even enjoy a victory. They're fighting one another over a victory. Oh, look at how pathetic the fan base is. They can't even agree on who should be the quarterback of the team. Oh, look at how pathetic the fan base is. They can't even agree whether or not the head coach or the GM should be fired. So, again, I digress. Granted, I can only speak for myself. I can only speak for, people that I know as Jet fans. We all think it's ridiculous because there's just so much infighting that sometimes the infighting takes more attention away from fighting the other team's fans or whatever. But, you also get your fair share of that too. Definitely. Where I have friends that have gone to MetLife Stadium and have Right. Bo, 100% agree with your comment there. Every team's fan base gets toxic in a loss at this point. Absolutely. And especially when your team is struggling and there continues to be question marks and there continues to be issues, and those issues get magnified, and then fans all think that they know how to fix everything, and fans are always ready to play Monday morning quarterback. And
that's
bottom
the
line
truth,
is,
CJ. You know, that's
Okay.
that's the truth. I mean, the Jets had another bad loss. They scored only 6 points against the Bills. You end up losing 32-6. They just fired the offensive coordinator of the Bills. So they think that's what the problem was. I'm not so sure. We'll find out as the Bills play a tougher opponent this week. But Zach Wilson gets benched for the second time in 2 years. He got benched last year. He gets benched again this year. Now they're putting in Boyle, who didn't look good at all when he came in. And, Boyle is a backup quarterback. That's what Boyle is. Boyle is not going to lead the Jets to the playoff round. I don't think anyway. The only thing that you guys got is probably one of the best defenses in the league, and now they're starting to get upset. You see them on the sidelines yelling and screaming, and they're just frustrated. CJ.
Well, you guys have heard me say this the past few weeks. I know Pags always shakes his head at me whenever I say this, but you are just not going to win football games when your defense spends over 60 to 70 to almost 80% of the game on the field. Now, if your defense is spending 60 to 70 to 80% of the time on the field, and your offensive snaps are like 19, as opposed to your opponents, which is like anywhere between 33 to 38, the Jets do not have a quick strike offense. We're not talking about a time of possession of 1 minute and 9 seconds where Zach Wilson is getting the ball from the 25-yard line and he is launching a 50-yard pass to Alan Lazard or Garrett Wilson, and they're walking into the end zone for a touchdown because they've completely obliterated the opponent's defense. We're not seeing that. You're seeing poor Breece Hall run for 2 yards and a cloud of dust. Okay? You're seeing Dalvin Cook run for even less. And then when you are making progress with the running game, your penalties start coming in, whether it's a holding, whether it's offensive pass interference, whether it's a chop block, etc. These are all mental mistakes. And yeah, that's true. You can't turn the ball over if you never have it. That's the truth. But when you go and you take a look at the Jets' past couple of games, right? Go and take a look at the Chargers game. They had one drive in which they were on the field for 1 minute and 9 seconds. That is completely and utterly unacceptable on any level of football. Now, there is a reason why the defense is getting frustrated, because they are now being asked to go out there and not only pitch a shutout, but now try to find a way to make an extra play to get a turnover and try to score points. So it's not enough that you're asking your defense to shut down the opposition's offense. You're now asking your defense to go and score points, which is utterly ridiculous. So
CJ, I know your head coach is a former defensive coach. He's very conservative. He doesn't go for it like on 4th and 3, or even when he's down in the other person's side of the field. He'd rather punt it or maybe take care. I mean, listen, your most valuable player this year is your kicker. If it wasn't for your kicker, you wouldn't have any points this year, really. And I think that, and this one guy's talking about, the offensive line. Listen, the offensive line is terrible. But then you see other teams with terrible offensive lines and their quarterbacks are making plays. So, exactly. I mean, it is part of the play. It is part of the problem. When Buffalo was shutting down your run, I knew you guys weren't for a long game. Because if you can't get Bryce Hall going and you can't throw it to him underneath, and you can't get him running off tackle or outside, it's going to be a long game. I don't care who you put in at quarterback.
Well, here's the thing, too. Garrett Wilson 2 weeks in a row puts the ball on the turf, leads to a turnover. Breece Hall ended up putting the ball on the turf, led to a turnover. Granted, the Breece Hall wasn't yep, Scott, 100% agree with you. We have the best long snapper in the league. So, but anyhow, I digress.
Or the one that gets the most work, at least.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing. The reason why Garrett Wilson is dirting the ball, should I say, is because in his mind, he's already past catching the ball. He's already past trying to get past the receiver who's trying to tackle him and trying to make a play 5, 10, 15 yards up the field. You don't even have the ball in your hands yet. So for me, what I want Garrett Wilson and even Alan Lazard to concentrate on is catch the ball. If you got to take the hit, live to play another down. I would much rather you take the hit and after a 6, 7, 8, 9-yard gain, where now it's 2nd and 1 or 3rd and 1, where you kind of open up the playbook a little bit more for us to be able to do something, which ultimately takes pressure off your quarterback. But I'm sorry, Zach Wilson is not an NFL quarterback, not under any circumstance. Everybody gets excited that he shows flashes and look at the big arm and so on and so forth. And, I was actually talking with Scott offline last night, and I went on just a complete epic rant with him on the phone. And basically, in a nutshell, it's this. I would much rather take the guy who could throw the ball 40 yards but has playmaking ability and knows how to read defenses over a guy who could chuck the ball 75, 80 yards, but you don't know where he's throwing the ball. All right, Christian Hackenberg was like that. Mike McCagnon thought he was the smartest man in the room when he drafted Christian Hackenberg. That kid couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. But he had a great arm.
Yeah.
He could chuck the ball 80 yards. Who cares? If you could chuck the ball 80 yards, but if it's going the opposite direction or your receivers can't catch the ball, you're useless. You're absolutely useless. If you can't read defenses, you can't play with your mind. I mean, look, Pags knows what I'm talking about because I'm sure with the Philadelphia Eagles, okay, they have seen more than their fair share of sloppy quarterback play. They have seen more than their fair share of having a great defense and no offense, or having a great offense and no defense, or basically just having nothing at all. Now, in their upcoming matchup against Philly, I said this last week, and you guys heard me say this, that I felt that this Buffalo Jets game was going to be more of a get-right game for Buffalo. Now, they may think that they have their kinks figured out or whatever, but I personally don't think, Pags, that the Philadelphia Eagles are taking the Buffalo Bills lightly. And I really think that if there is a game where the Philadelphia Eagles are going to flex to put the rest of the league on notice, this is the game you do it. So, what do you think, Pags?
I'd love to believe that, but I think it's just natural. It's natural. It's like I think they had the Chiefs circled on their calendar, and I think they had the 49ers circled on the calendar. And when you have a game in between two circles, that game can get overlooked a little bit. Now, again, the Bills are not the team that are not a bad team. So it's not like we're playing the Atlanta Falcons or something like that. Or the Jets, although we found out what that was like when we took that easy.
The Bills, were projected to win the AFC East. So, I mean, there's plenty. I feel like there's plenty of reason to believe that they probably looked at this. This is the hat trick from hell. If we can get through the hat trick from hell, which would be KC, Buffalo, and the Niners, then I think the Chiefs would probably. The Eagles would probably be able to take a breath and say, okay, we now have solidified our playoff location. We've already put the league on notice. Now let's handle our business. That's what I think.
Well,
I hear you. I don't know that they're going to be able to do that.
Well, I mean, listen, the Eagles we know are right now. I mean, you could put the 49ers in there if you want, maybe Dallas, but the Eagles are the best team in the NFC, maybe in the NFL. So we'll see what happens as the Eagles go on and play. But you guys are playing in the first Black Friday game in NFL history, and you're playing against the Miami Dolphins, a high-powered offense, an okay defense. What would you have? What do the Jets have to do to beat the Miami Dolphins? Besides like blowing up their bus before they get there.
Well, the only way for the New York Jets to be able to beat the Miami Dolphins is plain and simply put this. Our defense needs to play like it's been playing in the first half of the year, which means that they need to put aside all of the angst and all of the aggravation and the frustration with the offense. And they need to find a way to shut down Tua Tagovailoa to keep Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill under wraps. And most of all, to really make Tua's life miserable. We have seen when the Miami Dolphins have played good defenses and good teams, okay, they have struggled. And they've struggled mightily because Tua sometimes panics under pressure. Now, that being said, he's also one of the most accurate quarterbacks outside of the pocket on the rush this season. So the Jets also have to make sure that your pass rush has to hit home, which means you can't overshoot. You can't overshoot gaps. You can't miss tackles. You can't have sloppy tackling because this team will take advantage of it with no issue. Now, that being said, on the offensive side of the ball, Tim Boyle needs to be better than Zach Wilson. Very plain, very simply put. And whoever it is who's blocking up front, and I think now that because of this change, there may be the possibility to inject some life into this Jets offense because Tim Boyle's familiarity with Nate Hackett's offense. He's gotten the opportunity to practice and go through the walkthrough all week with the ones. He seems very confident going into this game. Now, I'm not going to say he's Mike White 2.0. Do I expect a Mike White 2.0 game? I don't know. Just please don't embarrass yourselves. Don't lose by 30 on the don't make New York Jets history, again, the wrong kind of history, where the first ever Black Friday game, you get embarrassed by 30-plus points on national television. Don't embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
If the Jets lose this game 24-20, next week when we're having this conversation, I probably am a very happy camper. Do you know why? Because we didn't get embarrassed. We actually put up a fight. Okay?
That's
for me.
Listen, I mean, CJ, I mean, that's called the moral victory. That still goes down as a loss, believe it or not. So,
No.
I mean,
but at this point, your season shot 4-6. I don't care what anybody says. Oh, well, the Jets came back and they did this for 4-6. This team was 4-6 and they did that. This team did 4-6. No team that's been 4-6 has had any amount of the issues that the New York Jets currently have. Plain and simply put, point blank, the end. Okay? They haven't had quarterback issues. You're not on your 13th different combination for your offensive line. Okay? You don't still have questions at the wide receiver position and all of your wide receivers having the yips.
well, there are teams out there that are on their third quarterback and that have offensive line issues. You're looking at two of us.
Jets, though.
You're looking at two of us right now that are on their third quarterback. But let's talking about quarterbacks. Let me get your all opinion before I tell Keith how bad they're going to lose to the Giants here in a minute. Let's discuss one quarterback issue. The legendary Joe Namath has a lawsuit filed against him. He used to run a very big flag football camp when I was younger. I went to a different camp than that because I wanted to hit, so I didn't go to flag football camp. But there was a counselor that allegedly was sexually attacking this kid at 12 years old, and it happened more than once. They were allowing him to go into the dorm and stay with the kid. It's really a weird, sad thing. The guy that did this is now dead. He died in 1998. So now they're suing Joe Namath because they're saying he turned a blind eye, sort of like what happened with Paterno at Penn State.
Yep, and Jerry Sandusky.
So starting with Pags. I don't know if you even heard about this, Pags, because you looked at me like you never heard of this, but it is something that was filed. I don't know what the damages are they're wanting or what this guy wants out of this. But what do you think of lawsuits that are what is it, 50 years later, somebody files a lawsuit against somebody?
Yeah, the hard part about that is, proof. Like not, and I'm not saying that this guy didn't get molested or whatever it is that he's claiming. How do you prove any of that? And why are you going after money now? Like, why is it a money thing? You know what I mean? Bring it to light. But you're suing. You're suing him because you want money. So that's where I have the problem. You're 50 years later, bring it to light. Make sure everybody knows about it. Defame the guy as much as you want to. When you go after suing him, that's where I have the issue.
All right, Keith, what do you think? I mean, I agree with Pags in a large extent. Why did you wait all this time? You could have filed charges against this guy. It's not like you had to go to this football camp. There's a lot of things here that I question. And again, I'm not saying that this didn't happen to him either. All I'm saying is, why you wait until the guy dies before you do this years after that? And why aren't you telling your parents? Why aren't you telling authorities? Why aren't you telling somebody about this?
Whenever something like this comes to light, it happens way too often. I always question why people have waited so long. And I know, not having gone through anything like this, there could be a ton of reasons why they didn't speak up then. But as Peg said, when you do speak up, you're looking for money, not justice. And the person that really, should be paying a price for this justice-wise isn't here anymore. This is one of the things that I really have a question about is why do you wait until the guy is not here anymore to sue Joe Namath? Because now this guy can't even stand up for himself. We're talking about evidence and everything else. This guy can't even defend himself, which maybe is why they waited so long to chase some money, because the guy would have been able to put up a defense. I don't know. I'm not making a judgment one way or the other, but I always have to raise a questionable eyeball to these stories when they come up, as you said, 50 years later. I just can never understand the time lapse. I can't. I'd be screaming bloody murder. The family knew. Somebody had to know this. I mean, he did not tell anybody for 50 years. I can't believe that.
I don't either. And CJ, from a Jets fan's perspective, I mean, what does this do to Joe Namath? I just saw a Facebook post of that video of him trying to kiss that reporter when he was drinking too much. So, I mean, now that they slide this stuff over to Joe Namath, who he's not the one they said did this. It's the guy that died. So what does this do to Joe Namath's reputation, if anything? And do women groups start protesting at Jet games for something that happened in Flag? I don't get the whole thing.
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, any type of situation like this is just always, it's just always very, 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 very difficult to process. Okay. Now, just want to use the Jerry Sandusky scandal as sort of like a reference. All right. We are not talking about something that we knew or someone who came forward who saw said act happen. And we're talking about months and possibly like years after the fact, where now there's some justice being sought after.
And multiple cases, don't forget. Multiple cases in this case.
Right, multiple cases as well. Thank you. In this, I can't help but think that I do have to agree with everyone on the panel here that I feel like it's a little bit of a money grab. But at the same right, as a Jets fan, you kind of take a look at Joe Namath and you kind of ask the question, like, did you know, like, that this was going on? Like, I don't care if it was 50 years ago. Did you really know? And if Joe Namath 100% knew absolutely nothing about it, then he needs to come out, his PR, his handlers or whatever, they need to come out and they need to say it. They need to produce whatever it is they need to produce, or whatever they still have records on, okay, that they did not know that this was going on. That if this was going on, this was perpetrated by whoever it was who was the assailant, and he acted alone. So,
well, CJ, let me stop you there. Why should they have to prove that they didn't know? Yeah, I don't know if any of you ever went to football camps. When you go to a football camp, it's not just one guy or two guys. It's a whole bunch of coaches. They're coaching different positions. Okay, so their expertise in each. It's not just two guys, and you may have two to 500 kids for that 1 week. I don't know how long they're I'm trying to remember how long that flag football camp was, but not only there's kids coming back through again, and I mean it's not like there is like it's Boy Scouts where you have a troop and you do this for a couple of weeks, right? It's an overturn of coaches. There's an overturn of kids, and it's hard. How you go back 50 years? If they even, I mean, imagine somebody has their records and say, well, this kid was in this dorm, this coach was coaching him, and a counselor marked off that he was going to see him in his dorm. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I think this is the problem with this lawsuit. The only thing I hope Joe Namath doesn't do is settle this. I hope he doesn't settle this because it's going to make him look twice as bad as anything he could do. So yeah,
hence the reason why I want him to come forward and be transparent about the entire situation and just let it all out there. Because look, if you say nothing in the court of public opinion, you're guilty until proven innocent. Because as soon as anybody has any type of dirt on you, it doesn't matter if it's this much. They're going to use that against you, and then other people around are going to use that piece of dirt to forward their cause.
In these cases, too, it's hard. You can't wash the dirt off even if you're found innocent. It's always there. The old line is, who do I see to get my reputation back?
Right.
Once you're besmirched with this type of charge, it's very hard to erase the smear.
That's why, for me, in my opinion, Joe Namath and his camp, they need to get out in front of this. They need to get whatever evidence they need to do to get out in front of it to 100% prove once and for all that, or at least as best as you can, right, that you knew nothing about that this was going on.
Okay, so one last point before we move and start talking about football again. Now, suppose he gets out in front of this, and then all of a sudden another kid that was a kid comes out and said it happened to me too. And
you can't stop that. You can't stop that. Take a look at the Deshaun Watson situation. All right, first it was one masseuse, then it was two. From 2 it went to 6. From 6 it went to 13.
Well,
From
then
13 it went to 21.
Then there's some fire. When there's that much smoke, there's fire somewhere, right?
So I mean, it's to me right now. If Joe Namath gets out in front of this and is 100% transparent, even if somebody else does come out and say it happened to me too, then you put them on blast. It's not that you're trying to alienate the victim or say you're a liar. All you want to do is give us the information. Who was it? Who did it? That's all.
No, I mean, I just think there's no way to defend yourself in this kind of situation.
Yeah, but Keith, you may as well go
let me brag about my let me brag about my Giants. This is one of the few times I get to do it.
So we move on from an ugly story to an even uglier story. Now you're talking about, right? Patriots and Giants.
Okay, so the Commanders, for some reason, the Giants beat the Commanders every time they play them since Eli Manning all the way. Well, I could go back into the 80s anyway. But anyway, we seem to have the Commanders
and this
number.
guy called him.
I wish we could play him every week. Bags did say it. But so our third string quarterback, who is living at home still, and maybe that's why he's playing so well. I'm not sure, but he throws for 3 touchdowns, 2 to Saquon Barkley. The Giants defense turns the ball over, gets 6 turnovers. I don't know. You can't win a game like that. I was a little impressed with the kid. He got sacked 9 times and still threw for 3 touchdowns, something that Daniel Jones couldn't do. So I think that the Giants finally played as a team. I don't know why it took so long for them to do this. I know the Commanders aren't the Eagles or the Cowboys, but they're not a terrible team. They're an okay team. So I finally got this. It looked like they played as a team. It looked like Saquon Barkley kind of was firing up the team on the sidelines, the defense. He played the role as a captain out there, and he really played a role on the field too, rushing and catching the ball. So I was kind of happy. I was actually smiling when I was watching the game for the first time in 7 weeks or something crazy. So we're going to go and we're going to play the Patriots. The Patriots come in. You guys have had a bye week. Belichick has normally been unbelievable on a bye week. He normally is prepared. He's ready to go. Your defense will be taking somebody away, trying to, I guess, take Saquon Barkley away, Keith. I think that's your first priority, right?
He's really the guy. I mean, I don't think they're going to concentrate on Danny DeVito that much. So, I mean, you got to stop him, but Saquon's the guy, right? So, yes. Now we don't know who's playing quarterback.
Everybody says Danny DeVito.
I'm starting to love Danny DeVito. I can't stop saying it. I'm so glad this guy's a quarterback.
Yes.
Tony DeVito, by the way.
So, I mean,
yeah,
the Giants have got to find a way. The Giants have got to find a way, of course, to run the ball against the Patriots. I would imagine the play action pass, blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts? Who do you think is going to start the game? Do you think Mac Jones starts, Keith?
Up until today, I would have said absolutely not. I think we've seen the last of Mac Jones, but now all of a sudden he says, as far as he knows, he's starting Sunday. And Belichick said, well, in classic Belichick form, said, I tell all the players to be ready to play on Sunday. So we don't know. I'd still be shocked if he started, but I don't know why he'd be telling the media as far as he knows he's starting. It makes no sense. Because everything we've heard up till now.
I would think that's your best option. I mean,
well, if you want to win games, yes. Mac Jones, look at as bad as Mac Jones has been, he's the best quarterback of the 4 you have to throw out there week after week. I know his confidence is shot. I know that there's a lot of reasons not to play him, but one of them isn't that there's a better guy to put out there to play. Because I know it's not Will Grier. He's been on 4 teams. Pretty sure I know what I'm going to get there. I've seen Bailey Zappi. He's no better than Mac Jones. And Malik Cunningham, if I was going to play somebody because the season's down the drain and I just want to see what I got, I'd play Malik Cunningham. But that doesn't seem to be the plan right now either. So your guess is as good as mine. Who's starting Sunday? We may not know until 1 o'clock Sunday.
And that might change after the halftime.
It could change.
You guys have a reasonable chance of beating the Giants. The Giants are no powerhouse by any means. I mean, you're going into New York. Bill Belichick was great as a defensive coach in New York. I'm trying to give you reasons why they should beat the Giants. I mean, like I said, the Giants aren't the Philadelphia Eagles. So and you've played better teams than the Giants and played.
We know
close.
that.
We do know that. And look at it. And it's funny. This is a team that had a chance to beat those Eagles. Yes. They had a chance to beat the Dolphins the first time and the second time and found ways to lose and kick away those games. They should have beaten the Colts. They're a better team than the Colts in my mind. But this team is now finding ways to lose. And listen, they should win Sunday. I'll be rooting for them to win. I'm not a guy who roots for my team to tank and get the number 1 draft pick. I mean, that's not how I I like to watch football. I like to watch my team win. I can't root for them to lose. Just not how I'm wired. I know it'd probably be in our best interest to lose every game from here on out, but it's not the way I'm wired. So I'll be rooting them to beat the Giants by 40. And I'll find reasons that I think we can win every game going forward, which will be silly because they won't. But, you got to be, if you're going to be a fan, then you have to be, as much as I will rip my team when they deserve it, I will be optimistic and look for reasons I can win games at the same time. And this is a game they could win.
The biggest thing I saw was when they showed disappointment by Robert Kraft. I mean, when he saw that last interception by Zappe, he kind of grabbed his head. And he looked really disappointed. I think it was on a fumble or intercept. Another play, he got really upset about it. So is there a director of operations there besides Bill Belichick? I want to try and cut Bill Belichick some slack here. Let me try this, Keith. I mean, is there anybody else that has the say over the personnel or the decisions? I know there used to be.
He answers to nobody except Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft, maybe, but that's it. There is no chain of command outside of that above Bill Belichick. Now there's people that he, will lean on for information and opinions, but he's the guy. He's still got the last say. Robert Kraft is the only guy who can stop him from doing anything, which has been a problem. 4 years because, again, I've said this a lot that, people tell me that the game has passed Bill Belichick by. I don't think it's passed him by as a coach. It's passed him by as a talent evaluator and a guy making your personnel decisions. You give him good personnel, he'll still win football games. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
But the Bill Belichick, the personnel selector, stinks right now. I think the game's passed him by there. He doesn't draft enough athletic bodies. That's the problem. It's the least athletic team I can, maybe in the NFL when I watch games. I mean, it's really sad when I see teams with so much more team speed than what the Patriots have out there and athleticism. That's the big thing that's missing on this team.
So
yeah, well, you also have to take a look at coaching. If I could just interject right here. Now, as far as Mac Jones is concerned, his first year in the league, he actually looked pretty good. But the problem is that you now went ahead and you decided to promote Matt Patricia.
Well, they ruined him last year.
Coupled with Joe Judge as co-offensive coordinators.
Yep.
Two people that, in my opinion, are just not qualified to do either. Matt Patricia, I've always known him as a defensive coordinator. He is not an offensive guy.
Nope.
So he should have had no hands in there. Joe Judge's expertise is special teams. It always has been. It always will be. Okay, so I'm not understanding why Belichick thought it was a good idea to have an ex-defensive coordinator and an ex-special teams coach now make offensive plays. It's just not. It's not something that was sustainable nor workable, and I think that Mac Jones suffered because of it. Again, just my opinion.
You're 100% right. They ruined Mac Jones last year with this whole experiment. Why it happened, I have no clue what Bill Belichick was thinking because, and I've said this many times on my shows, certainly on Mac's shows, when this topic comes up, that one thing that Bill Belichick and the Patriots excelled at during their 20-year run was putting people in a position to succeed. And what he did last year put nobody in position to succeed. It was not fair to Matt Patricia. It wasn't fair to Joe Judge, and it certainly wasn't fair to a second-year quarterback in Mac Jones, who was in a pivotal year. Second year, that growth is huge. And they destroyed his confidence, and he's never gotten it back.
All right, so if that's the truth, then how can you explain 2 years ago, same coaches, the Patriots are 9-4 at this time?
Not the same coaches. Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator. And
Joe Judge was not one of the offensive coaches?
He was not. He was not. I don't know if he was on the staff. He was part of the special team. I don't even think he was a field coach at that time. I think he was like a special advisor after he'd come back from the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So was Adam Gase for about 6 months.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So-
that's the difference. I mean, again, Josh McDaniel, again, it's not rocket science that they ruined this kid. I mean, maybe he wasn't going to be Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts or any of the top quarterbacks, but he could have been and was in his rookie year a playoff quarterback with good numbers.
So all the things that happened. So all the things that happened to the Patriots. None of those are Mac Jones' fault. Then is that what you're saying?
No, he's got to take his own share of the blame. I mean, look at no bad coaching makes you throw a pass like he threw at the end of that Colt game. I mean, I could have completed that pass. It wasn't that hard a pass. But no, everybody has to accept their own responsibility. But the Patriots have taken a young kid, and not only has he worked under, again, 3 different systems in 3 years, but he's also been, just had nobody who knew what to do with him as a quarterback last year at all, in a pivotal year for his growth. And yes, he has to take his own responsibility, but Bill Belichick still to this day, and has not said I made a mistake last year.
So before we get to Buffalo and Washington and Dallas and all those good things, because we got, of course, Thanksgiving, Dallas and Washington, huge rivalry.
I want to talk about those. They're good teams.
Listen, it's Thanksgiving, Keith. We got to talk about it a little bit. Let me ask you a little bit about what Tom Brady came and said. He said that the NFL is mediocrity. I mean that they're coaching schemes instead of positions. I mean, he really let the NFL have it.
He's right.
I would think most people would agree with that. I don't know about Pags with his Eagles because it seems to be working out right for the Eagles, but I feel he's right 100%.
He is. We talked about it Sunday on the show with Jim, Jeff Cote, and I've never in my life seen so many bad football teams. There's good football teams. The Eagles are very good. The Chiefs are good, right? The 49ers are good. There's good football teams. I've never seen so much bad football in all my life. You look every Sunday, half the card, 3/4 of the card is unwatchable. And I told you Sunday, I'll watch my team no matter how bad they are. I'll watch every play, and I will pour my heart out hoping we can find a way to win games. But I'm not watching other bad games. I can tell you that right now. And the NFL is putting a lot of bad games in front of me every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to hurt 100%. Yep.
Or, I mean, what was it? 2 weeks ago, it was every primetime game was a bad game.
Yeah.
Every primetime game, starting with the Jets, and then it went all the way over to, on Monday Night Football, whoever it was there. All of them, stink.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to speak for Tom Brady, but I don't think in any sense he was talking about the Eagles or talking about the Chiefs. I think he's overall, right? It's just that's just what the league wants, parity. That's what parity looks like. A lot of bad football.
Mm-hmm. But also, I think
parity.
So while we're talking about football things, there was something else that came out that involved 3 of the 4 of us here. The poll sent out by ESPN, they polled, I guess, somewhere around 80 people, 80 football players. They said that MetLife Stadium was really far and away one of the worst stadiums to play in. Now, you guys have your home games there.
They were talking specifically about the turf, were they not? Or am I wrong?
Yeah,
about
the
that?
turf. Well, they said the whole experience. They expounded on that, and that was from somebody that was anonymous too. That said that. Listen, I've been to the stadium. The stadium is fun to watch. I've never played on the turf, and we've talked about that with Byron Williams before, and Byron Williams said that the turf right now is not good. It's not good, and not just Giants Stadium either. About 9 stadiums, the turf causes injuries. So MetLife is one of the worst to play on, and why so many injuries are happening. So that
They got the old vet turf.
you got to go back. Yeah, you got to listen. You got to go back to natural grass. I know it's more expensive for the owners, but it's not like they're not making any money. So
no, it's not. It's the turf that's actually at MetLife Stadium is actually what's considered a grass AstroTurf hybrid. Now they originally
it's a blend.
Yeah, it's a blend. Now it's supposedly it's lower maintenance. It's easier to maintain. It also maintains its efficacy. But, however, in times of bad weather, it does have a tendency to get very hard. There's a rubberized surface to it where sometimes even in the rain, it gets slick. There are certain conditions in which guys that wear spikes, the spikes will dig into the turf and not come out. Yeah. So this is obviously what's precipitating to all of the injuries that are coming out. But the thing that I'm starting to see is it's not just the turf, okay? It's very easy to blame the turf because we saw guys get hurt on playing on natural grass, and we saw guys playing on straight up old AstroTurf.
Well, that's even worse. Yes.
Now, this is the reason why, and I actually want to pose this to you guys. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I'm just curious as to kind of get your opinions on it. The NFL offseason to me is too short. And I'm going to explain to you why I think it's too short. Because you have from the time that the Super Bowl ends, you have maybe about 3 weeks. Then you have the start of the new league year in which you have free agency, then all of a sudden OTAs, then there's mini camps and all that other garbage. I really feel like that the offseason, seriously, you should have 2 to 3 solid months where these players do absolutely nothing. And I'm talking about no workouts, no heavy, intense training or anything like that. You need to give your bodies an opportunity to heal. And I think because of the fact that these athletes, and that's exactly what they are, the athletes, they are constantly training year in, year out. They don't take time off. And when you don't take time off, you're not giving your body a chance to heal. So when I take a look at the way that the game has revolutionized now compared to the way that it was in the 90s and the early 2000s, and even in the 80s to an extent, you really didn't see guys getting a lot of injuries. But you also had a lot of guys who played with injuries. But now it just seems like, oh, well, he's got turf toe. He's out for 46 weeks. I mean,
there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things you said to unravel. I know Pags has got to go. Pags, are you good to stay for another few minutes, or you got to take off for your show?
No, I got to get going here. I did want to say, hey, listen, obviously the other part of that was that the most handsome fan base was the Philadelphia Eagles fan base. I know that I was the one that posted that we are the most handsome.
Yes.
Most annoying, but most handsome as well.
All right, Pags.
Yes.
Pags, we love you. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Check. All right, Pags. Take it easy, buddy. So Pags will be on with the Northeast with the NFC East show right after this. There's a lot of things that you pose there. I think the biggest thing, of course, is they're not football ready. I've had Jeff Coat and Byron Williams talk about that 100 times. You're not physically ready to play football. You're not warm all the time. They don't stay warm on the field, on the bench area. They just sit down, then they go out and they're going to make football moves. They're not hitting enough. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and that's the NFL PA's fault. They're the ones that have all these rules that the players can't do this and can't do that, and then these guys get hurt. And I've talked.
Bring back 2-a-days.
Too much.
Cookies.
Just to throw in there real quick, because I know we're going to run out of time. I agree with what is being said here, that there's too much training that goes on year round, but there isn't enough football training that goes on. That's what we talk about a lot with Jim and Byron, right? Mac is
Yes.
there's not enough hitting in training camp. You only wear 10 days with pads on. And once the season starts, you never hit except in games. That's why guys are getting hurt, because they don't learn how to absorb hits. They don't learn how to fall the way they used to fall, protect their bodies. And all we're worried about is weight training and, building up muscle bigger, faster. But we don't hit people enough outside of games. And that's, they're combined. It's a bad combination.
Well, let me throw one more thing in there that we haven't talked about. And I think it's very important for people. I played football for 10 years, and I know what it takes to play the game on the field. You've got to play reckless abandon. You've got to play aggressive. I mean, you don't lose your mind, but when you're going to hit somebody, you're going to hit them. You're not going to pull away. The penalties today have players pulling off hitting people right now because they're scared to get fined, and they're scared to get kicked out of the game, and they're just playing scared today. They just put a rule in now, and they're going to ban hip tackling from behind, where you actually grab the guy.
Where's that allow you to hit somebody now? You can't hit them high, you can't hit them low, and you can't hit them in the middle. Where do I hit somebody?
This is what I'm saying, Keith. So if you're hesitating out there, you're the one that's going to end up getting hurt. You can't play half-speed football. And the penalties are taking that away from all the football players that are on the aggressive, especially the defense. The defense is penalized constantly.
They've been trying to play violence out of a violent game forever. People tune in. I'm sorry. The players know what they're getting into. We've talked about this with Jim as well. They know what they're getting into. It's a violent game. People tune in for the violence, and the NFL is trying to legislate it out of the game, thinking they're keeping players healthy, and they're having the exact opposite effect.
Agree. And I don't think there's an answer. Unless they just take off the helmets, or they just just put flags on everybody, and then let's
change the NFL to the National Flag Football League.
There you go. It is right now.
It's getting close, right? It's getting close. You can't do anything.
The penalty flags, I was making a little.
It is.
It's a joke.
It is crazy, and I've never seen so many games being decided by referees as I have this year. I've never seen nothing like this, and
either keep the flag, it goes both ways. Sometimes they just never get the flag out till the game's on the line. You don't throw a flag all game, or you're throwing a flag on every play.
And Keith, the defensive pass interference rule is crazy. And now they got these other rules that the defenders can't play, and they get frustrated and they get upset, and it's just ridiculous. So, anyways, I don't know how you solve that. There's got to be a get together of players and that know something about football, and the Tom Brady's and the Mean Joe Greens and maybe the Lawrence Taylors, and maybe we get football back. I doubt it, but it would be nice. It would be nice to see something like that, kind of a committee set up.
I've been saying for about 10 years, start with Roger Goodell, and that's a good start. Go from there.
I agree. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Again, we didn't talk about the Cowboys beating the hell out of the Panthers, but everybody knew that was going to happen, so that wasn't big news. Washington, losing to the Giants, we already covered that. Them two are playing. Should be a good game. I still think Washington's offense can do something against that Dallas defense throwing the ball if they give him time. That's the big question, right? Can they give that quarterback, the young quarterback, some time? Detroit, Green Bay, old rivalry. Anything can happen. Detroit should wipe the mat with Green Bay. We'll see what happens there. And the other one is Seattle and San Francisco. I think this is where San Francisco makes their move. I might be, Keith. I don't think so, but you think it will. That's fine. But I think San Francisco will physically dominate Seattle. So we'll see what happens. Thanks to CJ. Thanks to the Philly Sports Guy. Thank you, Keith. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on Friday on the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Have a good one, folks.
Catch you Friday.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Angle here for TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. Sorry for the little bit of a delay there. Sometimes it's hard. I'm coming off another show guesting and trying to get this show started. But we're here, and now we've got about an hour and a half time to enjoy. Welcome to everybody watching us tonight on TGI Sports Talk, of course, and on Northeast Streaming Sports. By the way, TGI Sports Talk, you can be watching us anytime now or later after the show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at some point. Also, Let's Talk Sports. You can watch us on their YouTube channel. And they've got a lot of great content, a lot of great stuff to watch. Shows every night of the week, all day and all night long. Northeast Streaming Sports, which we can watch on Facebook, YouTube, and this show will replay on their Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel at 9 a.m. Saturday, just before the games get started. So an alternative to the ESPNs of the world, if you will. I'm not as old as Lee Corso. I just seem like it. And also, listen, a quick shout out to Ralph Wilson. And by the way, before I go there, get out there and download that Roku app for Northeast Streaming Sports. Great content there, day in, day out. Great stuff every day of the week, as we said with Let's Talk Sports. Same thing with Northeast Streaming Sports. And some DDH, thumbs up, by the way. And then a quick shout out to Ralph Williams from RW Media. Ralph does some great stuff over there. And in particular, we like to plug the Sports Corner, which we try to share when we see it to share. It's every Tuesday. I thought at 5:30, but I think I saw it start at 5 o'clock here this past Tuesday. So if I've got the time wrong, I'll check that out and reiterate for you. But that's on WBVP, 12:30 a.m., 99.3 FM in Pittsburgh. You get lots of Pittsburgh sports and nationwide sports. And if you watch Ralph's stuff, man, he even talks outside of the world of sports. So, excuse me. Lots going on. So happy Thanksgiving Eve to everybody. Not sure how big the crowd will be comment-wise tonight, but we hope we're there because we got a lot to talk about, a lot to unravel. We got a new college football poll. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about from last week in college football. Week 12, Georgia continues to roll and get better. FSU, Florida State wins but loses at the same time with Jordan Travis going out and getting jumped by Washington in the poll. Yeah, this is a bad sign for FSU. If they win out, they may be in trouble. We'll see what happens. Bama really on a bye against Chattanooga, but playing well. Washington survives a tough one in Oregon, which Oregon will play this weekend to try to secure a place in the Pac-12 championship. We'll look at all the conference championship matchups, the ones that are locked in, as well as the ones that are still up for grabs, at least the one we can look at. I mean, you look at the Big 12, I think everybody's still alive that's 5-3 and better, and it's impossible to unravel their tiebreakers, so we'll have to wait for some help on that. Texas, in my mind, keeps getting weaker. Their resume gets weaker every week as they struggle with teams they probably shouldn't, and some of the teams they've beat have hurt their chances as well. Michigan and OSU both have warm-ups for their big matchup this weekend, the Big Ten, which will likely decide the Big Ten champion because Iowa should not have a chance against either one of these teams. We'll talk a little more about the Michigan situation as well. Michigan just scrapes by, and we'll look at all the top 25s in a second. Ohio State rolled pretty good. And we'll look at some of the rest of the scores as well. You know, big news, as I said, probably the biggest news out of last week in my mind. You didn't have changes. Nobody in the top 8 lost for I think since the poll got started, college football playoff poll got started, none of the 8 teams have lost. Top 8. Now you got a little bit of movement because Washington goes by FSU. But is it fair that the FSU loses their spot right now? They went from 4 to 5 because their quarterback went down. The committee says that's not the reason. I'm having a hard time buying it. Now, I understand Washington's probably got the better resume. And that may settle itself anyway. But right now, Oregon, I could see a one-loss Oregon Pac-12 champion finish ahead of an FSU undefeated ACC team. This committee set it up for that to happen. And I don't think that's fair if they were to go undefeated. Now, they've got a tough road. I mean, while Florida's not that good this year or the last few years, it's still a rivalry game, and that'll be tough to overcome. Some other news around the world of college football. Sorry, I read something made me laugh. James Madison has dropped. They were gonna take legal action against the NCAA for this stupid rule that's not allowing them to participate in the postseason. And they hurt their own. I didn't hurt their cause last week, but they lost after making a petition to the NCAA and having it denied. They lost to Appalachian State at home last week. Not a good loss for James Madison, but it doesn't change the fact that this rule needs to change. It's just, it exists for what reason? I have no idea. I mean, how many teams are moving up a level and have an advantage over anybody, and they should be disallowed from participating in league championship games and bowl games, and certainly playoff consideration. Not that James Madison would be considered for the playoff slots, but they were before last week and play for the New Year's Day bowl game for the group of five, which, by the way, we'll get into a little bit. There's a good race going on there. Liberty has moved into the race for that. They're still undefeated. Tulane with one loss. And you've got SMU, I think, still alive. You've still got probably Texas San Antonio still alive for that group of five slot. So lots to unravel. We'll talk. And again, coming up this week, the big games, we'll get into those. And obviously we know the biggest game is going to be Ohio State and Michigan. And speaking of that, welcome in Ed from Columbus. Heard Michigan asked the president for a pardon for Jim Harbaugh, but the White House pardons chickens, but not ones that cheat. Oh, Jim is really Jim. Jim, you've contributed a lot to the shows recently, and I do appreciate that. And welcome in tonight. We'll be talking a lot about that game coming up, and a lot about Michigan, a lot about Ohio State. I mean, look at, again, just to touch on the Michigan thing real quick again off the top. I don't condone cheating, but Ed, your own school was helping Purdue with Michigan signals in the Big Ten championship game last year, according to an SI article. And I'm not naive enough, and I don't think you are, to think that everybody's not out there doing something to get an edge. Now, did Michigan take it a step further, similar to other teams that have been caught? I firmly believe if you want to catch any team doing this type of thing, and all you need to know is that the NCAA uses terms to try to throw you off, throw everybody off. If you're doing this, you're stealing signals. And if you're doing this, you're decoding signals, which is okay. Come on. And by the way, put headsets in the helmets and it wouldn't matter. Let's see. Some news at Michigan State. The Michigan State AD had looked at ways to part ways with Mel Tucker before the season started. So Mel Tucker may be the stupidest coach in the history of the NCAA. He had a golden parachute. They couldn't fire him without it. Cost him $70, $80 million. Very similar to Jimbo Fisher, who Texas A&M spent 2 years trying to dig up stuff on Jimbo to fire him for cause and couldn't find anything. He gives Michigan State the perfect reason to fire him for cause. I mean, Mel, you can't be any stupider than you were. Dion talks about the fact that they will not be out buying players this year, so we'll see how that holds true. But again, to me, the big story this week is going to be FSU And these next couple of weeks, how this final poll hashes out is going to be interesting. A lot of it will take care of itself. A lot of it is still open to a great deal of debate. And the FSU situation with Jordan Travis going out has opened it up to even more debate, because there's a school of thought that you can devalue a team, undefeated or not, because of an injury. And I just do not think that's really cool. What do you got for me, Ed? Ed believes all teams cheat. Agreed. But once you get caught, don't say the rules are stupid. Golden rules. The golden rule is don't get caught. I agree. I didn't say the rules were stupid. Again, I will say that the fact that NCAA coaching staffs are holding up pictures of animals, I won't say giraffes, John DeLong, if you're listening, and not being able to transmit signals into a quarterback's headset is just stupid. And we talked about it a little bit Sunday in the stream of consciousness that, money should not be the reason this isn't happening. High school teams do it. So anyway, let's look at last week's scoreboard real quick and put up your comments. We're going to be talking about what, the games that really mattered last week. And I will look at some other games of interest, but Louisville, who technically probably there's 8 teams alive, 9 if you want to count Louisville. Louisville would need all kinds of help to even be considered. Now, they would be in a 12-team playoff if that were to start this year, and we'll take a little bit about a look at that. Notre Dame rolls over Wake Forest, won't matter. Maybe Notre Dame can still secure some kind of New Year's Day bowl game because, the name does generate fans showing up and people watching. Georgia continues to get better and better. Carson Beck with another nice game, 3 touchdowns, 289 yards. They just roll on the road after a slow start, a bit of a slow start. They fell behind Tennessee 7-0. Carson Beck and Georgia roll. They're getting better every week. We keep saying it, as does Bama, and they're set. And we'll go through the conference championship games here in a little bit. Ohio State, Ed from Columbus, we just mentioned, they roll. At least they play a real team this week, unlike some of the SEC teams, which I never understand this bye week they want to give themselves, including FSU, by the way, from the ACC. They played Northern Alabama and lose their quarterback. So kind of a double whammy there. But Ohio State rolls over, a middle-of-the-road Minnesota team, but that's a good win for them. McCord efficient. Not much of a game out of Marvin Harrison Jr. I really thought a couple of big weeks to end the season, including a big game against Michigan this Saturday in front of a national TV audience, the whole country, literally, could give him a chance to jump at least into the final. And he still may have a chance to get to the final 3 that show up to New York for the Heisman. Marvin Harrison, to my mind, is the best football player in the country. You take all these quarterbacks, I still think he's the best player. Michigan has a bit of a tough go against Maryland. Maryland comes back in this game late. It was 29-24 before a safety late in the game. Maybe looking ahead to Ohio State a little bit. Maybe all the stuff is starting to catch up with them. Harbaugh accepted his suspension. Still up in the air whether he'll be able to coach in the postseason. But they get the win, and they set up this big game, obviously, with Ohio State this weekend. Florida State, we mentioned 58-13 after Jordan Travis goes down, and a Rodemaker, who's a 5th-year senior, I believe, goes for 217 and 2 touchdowns. Washington wasn't a pretty game, and I'll get to your comments in a second, Ed, if you guys want to keep posting comments, I'll get to them. Washington didn't play a pretty game. Michael Penix didn't play a pretty game. And has fallen probably, I would say Bo Nix is a clear favorite right now. Maybe Daniels is second. And I'm going to talk about him a little bit in a second because I think what went on last week is a bit of a travesty with Daniels. But they hold on to win 22-20. They don't score a point in the second half. Their defense had some big stops. Oregon State's a good football team. Corvallis a tough place to play. The weather was bad. they get by a really good team, and now Oregon's got to do the same this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. The Heisman winner will be whoever wins between Nix and Penix Jr. I thought that for sure going into this Oregon State game for Washington last week, Ed, but Penix really threw a stinker up there in my mind last week. I mean, he does get the win, and I do think they're the best two players, and they're playing for something where, Daniels is not. And I don't like what went on in that LSU game. I don't necessarily have a problem with teams blowing other teams out, but LSU is playing. Who the hell were they playing in this game? Again, they're playing Georgia State, and they leave Daniels out there the entire game, let him throw 6 touchdowns. Now, he had a great game the week before in a league game, which I'm okay with. If you can have a great game within the context of a really good football game, that's great. I don't think it helps it should help this guy's Heisman opportunity by going out there and just laying it into Georgia State. So I'll be hearing from John DeLon about what a great game Daniels had again after he set a record the week before rushing and throwing the football, which I gave him credit for. But this one I will not give him credit for because he shouldn't have been out there playing that entire game. Now, I understand. I always say it's your job to stop me, not mine. But I think this is a bit of a travesty the way Brian Kelly and LSU went about this. But again, I guess what I'm saying could be considered a bit hypocritical because of the way I feel about blowouts in general. I don't like the way they went about this. And again, no matter who wins, I think your guy is the best player in the country. Yeah, listen, SEC schedule. What you know? What I don't have a problem with these guys playing these teams. Everybody plays a cupcake. Ohio State's going to play a cupcake, but they don't play them in week 12. And I never like this. Playing them late when things are like the Heisman getting decided and whatnot. I don't like it. Anyway, going through the rest of the scoreboard a bit. Oregon rolls again, some style points for them. Bo Nix, again, I guess we could say the same thing here, I guess. If I'm going to be critical of Daniels, I could be critical of Nix. But to me, Nix is playing on a better team. Nix has played against better competition, or beat better competition, if you will, other than Washington. I think Nix is the front runner. I do think Daniels is probably second and Penix is third. Harrison is probably fourth. Oregon rolls. Oregon's got Oregon State this week in a huge rivalry game that will not be played after this year because of the realignment. So that game will determine the outcome of the Pac-12 championship game matchup. Because if Oregon should lose, Arizona wins against a weak Arizona State team, which Oregon just beat up on them. Arizona's as hot as anybody in the Pac-12. Arizona would play in the championship game. And Jed Finch is doing a great, great job there. Texas kind of squeaks by, again, a mediocre Iowa State team on the road. They win by 10, but, the worst, as the Big 10 or Big 12 keeps, all coming to the middle, it makes Texas's one-loss record because their loss to Oklahoma doesn't look as good with Oklahoma having lost 2 games now in conference. So Texas is going to have a hard time when it starts matching up with some of these other one-loss teams, if it comes to that. Alabama, as we said, rolls against Chattanooga. Missouri beats Florida 33-31. Florida not – listen, Billy Napier's in trouble at Florida. They've got their schedule next year is one of the toughest probably ever in the history of college football. And they may be looking to make a change here. And I wouldn't know if I want that job. But Missouri playing great football. We'll talk more about them here in a second. Penn State rolls over Rutgers 27-6. Of course, Penn State rolls. It's not Ohio State or Michigan. Ole Miss rolls again. They're also on a bye, 35-3 over UL Monroe. BYU loses to Oklahoma 31-24 at home. LSU we talked about. Iowa quietly 9-2 wins the West of the Big Ten, but can't score points. 15 points, a safety, and a touchdown and 2 field goals. I guess they should be happy they got a touchdown. This team will get rolled by Ohio State. And I'm going to say Ohio State beats Michigan Saturday, by the way. A little preamble there. Arizona rolls over a good Utah team, 42-18. The news out of Utah this week is Cam rising. And Kenny Gifford has brought this up several times that there's too many 25 and 26-year-olds playing in NCAA football specifically, sports in general. And Cam Rising is coming back to Utah for his 7th season. Kind of put a cap on this stuff, man. They may keep coming back because they make more money. Clemson continues to bounce back after Dabo Sweeney's meltdown a couple of weeks ago. They win 31-20 over North Carolina, whose season has fallen apart. I wonder if Mac Jones might just walk away. Kansas State beats Kansas 31-27. Kansas State and half of the Big 12 still alive for the Big 12 championship game. That one's hard to unravel. Oklahoma State bounces back from a horrible loss the week before, which not only hurt them, but hurt Texas's resume, if they should get into that comparison. If they win this week and Texas wins, they're both in the championship game of the Big 12. So Tulane finally has a decent victory after some close calls against some not so good teams. They're 24-8. They still are in the driver's seat right now for that New Year's Day berth for the group of 5. What do you got here, Ed? Shout out to those nerds from North. Listen, I've talked about this a lot. Coach Braun gets the interim coach gets the full-time gig, and he should, because they've done a great job. I thought this was going to be a 1-2 win season for this team with everything going on there, the turmoil, with the harassment allegations, the hazing, and all this other stuff that was going on under the watchful eye of Pat Fitzgerald. They've done a great job this year. They're over 500. They're bowl eligible, and congratulations to them. I think it is, as you said, a great season under their young coach after this whole debacle they've been through. So, excuse me. Boy, sorry I wasn't able to get to the cough button there. Still got the cough after the COVID. Then listen, I got sick like 6 weeks ago. Ooh, it's nothing to fool around with. So that's a look at that. And let's take a quick look at the after we finished up last week. Let me look real quick at any other games of interest. I do like to go through these because I like to give the military scores and whatnot. So let's go through the rest of FBS here real quick. Obviously, I know I don't know if it was you I talked about it or whatnot, and we'll get some great games. We had some good games already this week. The MAC on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, a lot of fun games and some good football and some underrated football teams. And I believe the MAC championship game is already set with Toledo, and we're going to go through the conferences here in a second. With Toledo scheduled to play, I believe, Miami of Ohio. We'll see if I'm right there or not. UTSA 49-21 over South Florida. Bad start for UTSA out of conference. UTSA, SMU, and Tulane all 7-0 in the AAC. All undefeated, very close race. UTSA really good. Watch Jeff Traylor and that Texas A&M job. Dan Campbell and Traylor, watch out. They could be the 2 leading candidates in my mind. Louisville, as we've talked about, they just get by Miami. Miami played a gamely last week. Van Dyke played well, didn't turn the ball over. Miami almost pulls this out, ties it at the end on a Hail Mary that comes up just short of the end zone. We talked about Notre Dame. I think I already talked about Louisville. I don't know why I'm talking about them again. Let's get past here. 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 Army comes. Listen, Army's now one game away from being bowl eligible after being off to a great, or not a great start, very poor start. Jeff Monken's got an extension. They've changed the offense there. They throw the football a whole lot more than they ever have. They're not just running the wishbone and whatnot. 28-21 over a good Coastal Carolina team down at West Point. So a good win for Jeff Monken, one of my favorite coaches. Michigan State gets a win over Indiana. Watch for Tom Allen to be getting fired at Indiana here very shortly. Mississippi State, one game away from being bowl eligible as well, even though they fired their coach here last week. Be interesting to see what happens with that search. As you talked about, Ed, Northwestern, 23-15 over Purdue. They're in a bowl. Texas A&M, after firing Jimbo, wins over Abilene Christian. Thank God they're good. The Christians were thrown to the Lions again. Bad line, I know, but 38-10. UConn gets a win over Sacred Heart. Jim Mora, tough year after really turned that program around last year. Navy, also a win away from being bowl eligible. 10-0 over East Carolina, who's not very good. A good history at East Carolina, but things have gone sideways there. SMU edges a good Memphis team, 38-34 in the road, as I said, to remain 7-0 in the American Conference. Liberty stays undefeated under their new coach, Jamie Chadwell. Watch out for him leaving after a year. 49-25, still in play for that New Year's Day Bowl shot. The Cotton Bowl, I believe, is where that bowl that slot goes. What else we got here? Not really interested. We talked about Appalachian State going on the road and beating James Madison, who'd had a 13-game win streak broken. And by the way, Georgia, 28 straight wins this week with their win this week. Didn't throw that in there. Also set an SEC record, I believe, with their 27th win in a row in the SEC. Wyoming beats Hawaii. West Virginia somehow still alive, 42-21 over Cincinnati in the Big 12. Still alive for the Pac-12 or the Big 12 championship game, excuse me. Hard to remember where these teams play these days. Duke, things falling apart quickly for Mike Elko's team without their great quarterback in Leonard. They lose 30-27. Things get, let's see. UCLA with a nice win over USC. USC just imploded here, lost 4 in a row, I believe, or 4 of their last 5. Lincoln Riley has got to just take a hard look at what's going on here in this program because things are not getting good. Not a great way for Caleb Williams to play his last game at home, most likely. And I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan as far as the next level. Great college quarterback. Not sure what we're going to see in the next level. I've compared him many times to RG3, and I think you might see that type of result. North Carolina State's have a good season, 35-28 over Virginia Tech. TCU rebounds to 40 with a 42-17 win over a bad Baylor team. Air Force loses their 3rd in a row. I've been hyping up Air Force all year, and Coach Calhoun all year. They get to 8-0. They really had a great chance of going undefeated in the Mountain West. They had a great chance to grab this New Year's Day bowl game, and they've lost 3 in a row to probably take themselves out of any consideration there. But they still are in play for the Mountain West championship game. Auburn, who gets their shot to be a giant killer and beat Auburn this week, they lose to a good New Mexico State team, 31-10. UCF loses to Texas Tech, who will play Texas this weekend. Cal beats Stanford in the game. No band on the field. Boise State fires their coach, and they win 45-10. Still in play for the Mountain West championship game. Arkansas has decided to keep Coach Sam Pittman after an up and down season. They're only 4-7, probably not going to make a bowl game, but they did decide to keep Coach Pittman, which the players were all happy about. Carolina beats Kentucky. They can still get to bowl eligibility this week with a win. Nebraska still bowl eligible. That would be, I still think that'd be a good accomplishment for this program in year one of Matt Rule's, the Matt Rule era, but they lose to Wisconsin last week. Syracuse loses to Georgia Tech, still can get to a bowl game with a win this week against Wake, but they fire one of my favorite coaches. And again, this is in my area up here, so I'm a little sad to see Dino Babers, who's a good man, a good coach. Just a bad situation at Syracuse in the ACC. 31-22, they lose. Dino will be looking for a job. Fresno State upset by New Mexico. Danny Gonzalez on the verge of losing his job at New Mexico beats Fresno State, who's still alive for the Mountain West. And San Jose State, also still alive in the Mountain West, beats San Diego State 24-13. So there's all the scores fit to be print. We'll look at the rankings now. Let me see what we got here. I may have missed a few comments as we rolled through that. What do we got here? Oh, I think I did that one. Mark Robertshaw, good to have you with us, Marky. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Hope to run into you in Amsterdam one of these days. We're over to Creekside on Sundays for the football games. If you're ever around, stop over and I'll buy you a beer. Perhaps Auburn was looking ahead to the Iron Bowl. They may have been. Listen, Auburn hasn't had a bad year in year one under Hugh Freeze, but they're still got a ways to go to be on Alabama's level. Now, this game, they're playing at home, Auburn. We've seen in this game anything can happen, and it could be an interesting game. What a futile effort against a weak. Listen, it's not really a weak New Mexico State team. They've got a chance to go to the Conference USA championship game, and they're 9-3 overall. And it's a decent football team. Not great, but you know. Tigers were minus 4,000. And what? Oh, they were 4,000. So they were 401 favorite in this game on the money line. That seems crazy to me. New Mexico State's not a bad football team. Man, I wish I hadn't. I didn't even check out DraftKings that morning. I looked for those little, those nuggets, man, to throw a few bucks on. You bet 100. That's a $4,000 winner, guys. Good to see you on the show, Mark. Hope you're doing well. Say hi to the family for me and happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there tonight. And as I said, stop by some Sunday. We'll buy you a beer. We're going to have a TGI Sports Talk at some point here. After we get through the holidays, we'll have another happy hour. But now that I've moved up the road to the Half Moon, we'll probably do it up this way somewhere. I'll let everybody know. And Ed, you're welcome to come if you want to, fly into town. Saratoga, New York, Ed. Pop in. So anyway, the college football rankings, not a lot of change. Again, no losses. Let me pull this up this way so I can get a better view of this. Where are we? Once again, no losses in the top 12 this week. Actually, the top 15, no losses. We don't have a loss till you get down to 16. And I don't think there were 16 last week. They were in the top. Well, so in the top 10, they did lose. That's my bad. Or that would have been Oregon State. They did lose. So, but in the top 8, though, we haven't had any change, I don't think, since the very beginning of this poll. Nobody's lost. Georgia remains undefeated and at the top, 11-0. Ohio State, 11-0. Michigan, 11-0. That's going to resolve itself this week. Going to be very interesting to see what happens to the Big Ten runner-up. Now, this isn't losing. The problem here is it's not even so much, we talk about Georgia losing the SEC championship game and potentially still getting a bid. This isn't that, because the loser of this game doesn't even lose your conference championship game. You didn't get in the conference championship game. So this could be an elimination game, and I like Ohio State here. We'll go through the card here in a little bit. Washington leapfrogs Florida State. I talked about this very early, and guys may not have been here yet, but the committee has said point blank that this was not because of the Travis Jordan injury, but it is quite clear, and I don't know what you want to call them. It's not the bylaws of the committee, but the committee is able to take injury into consideration. So Florida State, even if they were to win out, beat their arch rival Florida this week, and then beat Louisville in the ACC championship game, still feasible, much tougher now, but still feasible, could be left out, undefeated, and maybe a one-loss team like Georgia, if they should lose the SEC championship game, gets in. I don't know if that's fair. If they lose, they should be out. I mean, they would be out anyway. But going undefeated, again, that LSU victory is a long time ago. The Clemson victory doesn't look so good anymore. So, again, there's another one similar to Texas. Their resume looks worse and worse as we go on because some of the teams they beat, which they can't control, have not played well. So Oregon now is still in that 6th spot, Texas in the 7th spot, Alabama is in the 8th spot. All of these teams, 1 to 8, still have a way to get to a path, I should say, to the 14 playoff. Nobody below them, Missouri, they blew their chance because they can't get to the SEC championship game. Louisville, I mean, theoretically, they could get a bit. A lot of stuff would have to happen in front of them. And I just don't think they've got any path to the playoff. That Pittsburgh loss was horrendous. This team should be sitting here undefeated right now and looking at a chance to play their way into the championship game. And then below there, you've got Penn State, Ole Miss. These choices aren't that big right now, but they will be big next year when we have 12 teams. And you'll have, I think the first year you're still going to have, I think you'll still have 6. So they may be amending it to 5 automatic bids, and then the 7 best, the next 7 best rated teams would get the at-large bids because of the Pac-12 situation. So these rankings will matter later on. Ole Miss is in that 12 spot, Oklahoma, LSU. So if this were to play out today, we'll take a look at that here in a little bit. Actually, let me take a look at it now. I believe somewhere I had something that spoke to this, and now I've lost it. So I guess we'll have to do it ourselves. So if this were next year, and again, we can't assume we're not gonna play the game where the teams have moved, to the new conferences already. That's just too much to take into consideration. The teams that would get a bye would be Georgia. Let's say Ohio State wins that. I'll give you that. Let me see about that. I see a comment from Ed. I want to comment on because he sees I'm wearing a U. You see I'm wearing a U Miami gear. Did Ohio State and Miami being a real contender after the 2002 title game? Well, I mean, the results say they have. Miami's problems are, a couple fold. They can't recruit the way that they used to, although they have one of the biggest NIL consortiums in the country. But they can't recruit for several reasons. The facilities there are not up to par with the rest of which the universities made a commitment when they hired Marco Cristobal to upgrade the football facilities. So that's underway to help recruit people. They don't keep people home. And the same things happen to Florida. It happened to Florida State. They're not able to keep the Florida kids home. It's a fertile Texas and Florida, the best recruiting grounds in the country. And they've not been able to keep kids home as they've gone to Georgia and Alabama and even to Mississippi and LSU. And even in Florida, the competition has gotten more stiff with UCF having some of the best football facilities in the country. So recruiting's been a problem. Coaching's been a problem, obviously. And the stadium, quite frankly, home games aren't home games for this team. They do not support this team. You hear as many visiting fans out there at Hard Rock. It's too far away, way out there in Dade County. It's too far away from the campus. This team had a huge advantage when they played in the Orange Bowl. Now, it was a dump and it was decrepit and it was in a bad part of town, but they need a stadium on or near campus. That's what they need. And they need a real home field advantage. And those are some of the things that have hurt Miami over the last few years or 2 decades, as Ed points out. So congratulations to Jim Tressel and Ohio State for ending. And by the way, it sounds like Miami has had this historically great football program, right? They had a 20-year run, basically, from 80 to 2000. 82 to 81, 82 to 2002. That was it. We've had some good years in between. Mark Richt had a couple of good teams, and they faltered at the end. But this isn't like this isn't an Alabama. This isn't a Michigan or Ohio State. But they've been great for decade upon decade. They had a good 20-year run. That's about it. Just the hard facts, folks. As far as the 12-team playoff, so Georgia, I'm going to assume for the sake of this argument, Ohio State beats Michigan. They get a bye, or they'll get a bye, yes, because they're the top four ranked team. I'm going to say for the sake of this argument, Washington wins. So now you got the 4th team. If we say Georgia, Ohio State, Washington, gosh, I don't know how you keep Florida State out in this situation. Florida State moves back up, Michigan moves out. There's your 4 byes. You've also got Tulane getting we also have the Pac-12. Sorry, the Pac-12 would be Washington. Who's going to be the I got the Big 12. The Big 12. Texas is going to get, let's just say Texas wins. Texas would be the automatic winner for the Big 12, and they're going to be in. So now you got 6 teams. Tulane would get in as the top rated. Again, if they were to win out and win their championship, they'd be the top rated 6th conference. And even if we weren't counting the Pac-12 next year, if this was next year, Tulane would be in as well. The at-larges would go to Michigan, Oregon, Alabama, Missouri, Louisville, and Penn State. To John DeLon's argument that, this 12-team playoff's going to have all these 3-team losers, there's only, in this scenario, there's only going to be one one, 2, 3 teams, 4 teams with 2 losses. 2 losses. No 3 teams. So you got 8 teams with 1 or no losses. Stop with the 3 losses, or 3 lost teams are going to not dominate, but proliferate this 12-team tournament. That's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. I mean, could there be a weird year where a 3-loss team gets in? Yes, maybe even 2 in a weird year. But I can't see any more than 2 ever getting in, unless it's just been a really, really parity-driven season. Can't see it. What else did I want to get into here? I really don't like this Florida State situation. I really don't. I look at these top teams that all have a chance, and a lot of it's going to take care of itself, right? Washington, Oregon ought to take care of itself. One of those teams will likely get in as the Pac-12 champion in my mind. Georgia or Alabama will get in. Alabama would have to leap from 8, but I don't think you leave a one-loss Alabama SEC championship out of the 14 playoff. I don't see how you do it. I don't know that Georgia can get in as the second team in the SEC. I'm still not sure that Michigan or Ohio State can get in as a second team from the Big Ten this year. I mean, let's look at that. What are the options? You'd have to leave Oregon out, a one-loss Oregon. You're not leaving Washington out if they're undefeated. So if Oregon were to win, you'd have to leave a one-loss Oregon team out in order to put in, say, the Georgia loser. I'm okay with that. But you're going to have to leave Florida State out. Are you going to leave Florida State out because they lost their starting quarterback and put a one-loss Georgia team in that lost the SEC championship game? Or Michigan or Ohio State if they lose? Well, again, those teams won't. Here's the problem with Michigan and Ohio State. They won't even have played in the conference championship game. That's why it's so hard, and it's happened last year, that they got 2 bids. But it's hard to rationalize that. You can't leave a champion out, a Power 5 champion out, certainly not an undefeated one. And I don't think you can leave a one-loss champion out to put a team in that couldn't even reach their conference championship game, which is why teams are doing away with divisions in a lot of cases, right? So I don't know. There's a lot that can still happen here, and a lot of this will take care of itself over the next couple of weeks. We got rivalry week this week, championship week next week, Army Navy the week after that, which will determine nothing. Army Navy, I think, will be much more interesting this year than it's been in a while. These teams are both seem to be on the come. And they might both have something to play for. As bowl bids could be on the Bill Pulver, good evening. Still out in California, are you? Sunny California, good place to be. As we had some snow here today. Bill would like me to be voted the commissioner of college football. Unfortunately, Bill, that would never happen, because I have a little bit of common sense, not a lot of smarts, but a little bit of common sense. And that's not something the NCAA is really used to dealing with. You know, the NCAA likes to either they do one of two things. They overreact immediately, or they don't react at all and drag your feet for years. So again, simple things like James Madison can't be in a postseason game in their conference or a bowl game or anything like it, because they have only been in FBS 1 for 2 years. And you have to sit out 2 years before you're eligible. Stupidest rule in the history of college football, which is saying a lot. I'm sorry. Just ridiculous. Oh, yeah. So, what else is going on around the world here? And by the way, you haven't spoken up. So we talked about the Heisman race, and dealing with the Heisman race again. I'll leave this up for a minute, Billy, just because I like it. Thank you for that, and it's great to have you with us tonight. And happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, by the way. If you'd pass that on, I appreciate it. So, Ed, I've talked a couple times about the Heisman. You said it's between Nix and Penix, which I think is fine. I think Daniels is in there. And again, I'm not happy with the way, not necessarily happy with the way things went down in that game last week. But again, I guess you could say the same thing about Oregon's game. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in college football. And if I'm picking, I don't like the quarterbacks on the next level, except maybe Drake May. I don't like Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix is going to be Mac Jones. I don't like Michael Penix. I like Drake May a little bit. I think the best player in college football, though, again, and he'll be the next best, Brock Bowers and Marvin Harrison will be better than any of these quarterbacks on the next level, except maybe Drake May. I'll go that far. So West Coast. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Good. Let the family know I'll eat some turkey. This will be my second Thanksgiving. We had an early Thanksgiving last Saturday because a lot of the family was going to be off with their significant others and things like that. So we had the kids and their significant others and our granddaughter and my dad and stepmom and my mother-in-law all over for Thanksgiving last Saturday. My wife and I will spend a quiet dinner out and then come back and watch some football tomorrow. So we'll have some fun with that. Oops, got that up there. So where was I? I don't know what I was talking about. Oh, Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison, Brock Bauer will have the best careers on the next level. Marvin Harrison, I think, is the best player in college football. Not going to win the Heisman, most likely. Could get invited to the ceremony, depending on, it would probably be the three quarterbacks, but I think Marvin Harrison last week didn't show, sometimes because of the limitations of Ohio State's offense, and McCord, who's played better and gotten better, I think, as years gone on, but he hasn't gotten better in the sense like Carson Beck has gotten better, and certainly doesn't play at the level of some of these other quarterbacks. Imagine Marvin Harrison Jr. playing with Bo Nix or playing with Michael Penix or Drake May or Daniels in LSU. They'd be off the charts. You've seen some good wide receivers come out of Ohio State the last few years. Marvin Harrison is going to be the best of them in my mind. So just something to think about. Let's take I want to take a look around the conferences, which I promised to do. Just to look at where we are as far as conference championship games and where we are. And some of it is set. Some of it's very, very murky, very murky. Tulane, the American Athletic Conference, the AAC, Tulane, SMU, and UTSA, Texas San Antonio, all 7-0. Two of them play each other this week. I believe it's Tulane and Texas San Antonio play each other, so that one will take care of itself. But SMU, who are they playing this week? Maybe they're playing Navy. We'll see it soon, but there's a chance still for a three-way tie. And you could see they have a weird rating system to rank the teams to see who would play. And I think the way it comes out right now is just like it's in the standings now. It's Tulane, SMU, and UTSA would be on the outside looking in if there's a three-way tie. That could change with the games that are played and, you know, what other teams on their schedule have done. There's a whole complex formula. But I think Tulane, I'm going to say Tulane with a 9-game winning streak, by the way. They're only lost to a really good Ole Miss team without their starting quarterback, Pratt. I think Tulane wins this game and in the process gets to the championship game. And I think they'll win it and get that New Year's Day bowl for the second year in a row. This is a good football team. Pratt's a good quarterback. And they almost beat that Ole Miss team. We might be looking at Tulane with a little Cincinnati argument near the top of these standings. A little tougher this time around with all these undefeated teams, and Cincinnati had it. But Tulane might have been in this conversation, but for that tough loss without Pratt against Ole Miss. So still some excitement to come in the AAC. In the SACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, we're set. It's going to be Florida State and Louisville. Louisville's had a really good season under their former quarterback from years ago, Jeff Brown. And Florida State, we talked about them last week with a big victory over a bad opponent and losing at the same time as they lost their starting quarterback, who's led them to some great heights here He's going to miss the rest. His career is over, and they are going to be hurt by Jordan Travis not being part of this team when this committee starts to vote, if they should win out. They've still got to get by Florida this weekend, and then Louisville in the ACC championship game. Now, this still could work out to their favor. Washington moved ahead of them this week, but Michigan or Ohio State's going to lose. Washington could lose. If the Washington loses, Oregon's going to jump ahead of Florida State most likely. I'm not saying that's right. A one-loss championship team against an undefeated championship team. I think FSU's schedule matches up very well. Their resume matches up very well with Oregon's, and they would be undefeated. But we'll see what happens there. As far as other, I mean, you could still, NC State, North Carolina could still get decent bowl games. Georgia Tech's been a good story in the ACC this year, as they've really rebounded and played really good football this year. 5-3 in the conference, 6-5 overall. But from where they were here the last few years, this is a proud franchise program. And they've got themselves a big game in rivalry week against Georgia. They can this is their season. This is their bowl game. This is their championship game. Doubtful they're going to even in this game, but this is their chance to shock the world. And Clemson, by the way, is 4-4, 7-4 overall. The Big 12 is a mess. Nobody's locked it up. Even Texas at 7-1 has not locked up the championship game. And you got 3 teams in a logjam at 6-2: Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Kansas State, West Virginia, and Iowa State, and even Texas Tech, the way I read it, are still alive, they think. But it's such a complicated, convoluted tiebreaker system they have. And they could very well end up with a bunch of teams tied, or this could get very simple. I do know that if Oklahoma State wins and Texas wins this weekend, they're in the playoff. Not the playoff, sorry, the championship game for the Big 12. But again, Texas gets hurt with this one loss, even with their win over Alabama. It was so long ago. And the resume's gotten weaker because some of the teams we thought were great wins don't look as good right now. The loss to Oklahoma looks even worse after Oklahoma had lost a couple of games in a row, and their defenses look really atrocious in doing it. They had very close wins with Kansas State, who's a good football team, but also with Kansas, with who else? TCU. With just last week with Iowa State, only a 10-point winner. This hurts their overall resume, and if they get into a one-on-one comparison, one-loss conference winner against one-loss conference winner, say Texas against Alabama, even with the win over Alabama, I think it's going to be easier for the committee to consider jumping Alabama over Texas. The Big Ten, I mean, we aren't set because we got Ohio State, Michigan this week. See what Ed's got to say here before I move on to his conference. 60 years ago today, JFK was assassinated, yes. That is a day that we should commemorate as well. Funny is a weird word to put right next to that, but funny that in 1960, Michigan went JFK and Ohio went to the cheater Nixon. Times have flipped. Ed, you've got some good stuff. I don't know that when you can find a way, and I got to tell you, I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed that you're able to use the commemoration of the 60th anniversary of JFK's assassination to the Michigan scandal today. That is a connection of all time. It's an all-time great connection. I'm just so impressed. And you've been such a great contributor to the shows recently. please make sure you are here every week, because that is I don't even know. You left me speechless, which is hard to do. Thank you. Anyway, when we get to the Big Ten, obviously the big game this weekend against Ohio State and Michigan, and I am going to pick Ohio State to win this game. That great defense of Michigan notwithstanding. So all that remains, Iowa's wrapped up the West and will be the waiting for the slaughter that's to come, whichever team they play in the Big Ten championship game. Penn State did a great job of folding against both Ohio State and Michigan, as always. And James Franklin can't get a signature win. But fortunately for James Franklin, there's no oil tycoons as alumni at Penn State to buy out that $70+ million buyout that he has. Maryland with a tough loss, by the way, last week against Michigan. Mike Loxley could be in trouble there. A lot more was expected of Maryland, not to compete for the Big Ten championship game, but to be better than 3-5 and tied with Rutgers in conference. So keep an eye on Mike Loxley. Iowa, Kirk Ferentz is safe for as long as he wants to be. His son, Brian, however, is on his way out. As you know, Brian had a contract that said they needed to win 7 games, which they've done. They're 9-2, which is nothing to be ashamed of. But they need to average 25 points a game. And they've averaged, trying to do math in my head, they've averaged about 18 a game. And he was told 2 or 3 weeks ago, he will not be retained next year. So anyway, Ohio State, Michigan will line up to play for the right to kill Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. Conference USA, Liberty, I believe their first year in this league. Jamie Chadwell's first year at Liberty, taking over for Hugh Freeze. Picks up right where Hugh Freeze left off. Hugh Freeze did a great job with his Liberty program as an independent. And now Jamie Chadwell's done a great job in year one. Probably going to match up against New Mexico State, which I mentioned earlier to Mark. Robert Shaw, not a bad football team. 6-1 in conference, 9-3 overall. And they or Jacksonville State will play Liberty in this championship game. And Liberty has moved into the top 25. They're 25th now in the poll. Still has a chance to earn that group of 5 New Year's Day bowl bid, which has still got some prominence, by the way. Some of these New Year's Day bowl games still have some prominence, and the playoff is not going to destroy that. The 12-team playoff is not going to destroy that. They're going to make use of those New Year's Day bowl games in the playoff system. Now, we don't need the 42 or 82, whatever it is, other bowl games. I mean, we don't need, that's 2/3 almost. Yeah. Almost 2/3 of the teams playing college football today make a bowl game. No need for it. The independents, where there is no, there is no playoff or anything. It's Notre Dame is leading the way at 8-3. They could play in a New Year's Day game, I suppose. Army's still got a shot at a bowl game at 5-6, coming back very nicely the last month. And Jeff Monken getting himself an extension, as we mentioned. UMass and UConn are just awful. In the Mid-American Conference, which we talk about, the MAC is now playing like Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights. Tuesday and Wednesday anyway. Always a lot of fun. Toledo and Miami, Ohio have locked themselves in. Toledo is a pretty good football team. They got a 10-game winning streak that nobody talks about. They're 10-1, and I guess, depending on what happens elsewhere, still alive for that New Year's Day bowl game for the group of 5. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. We're going to look at the whole schedule this weekend here in a second. The Mountain West, again, still wide open. Vegas, I believe UNLV has secured one of the spots in the championship game. Air Force, who's lost 3 in a row now, 2 in the conference. Boise State and San Jose State all still alive going into this weekend with a chance to make it to that championship game. The Pac-12, Washington has wrapped up their spot. We've got Oregon playing Oregon State this week, Arizona playing Arizona State. If Oregon stumbles and Arizona wins, Arizona will be in the championship game. Oregon will, their playoff hopes will be up in flames. And again, USC, the biggest disappointment here. USC with a great win last week may have saved Chip Kelly's job, as he went from a pariah to toast of the town in a week. But we'll see what happens here. I would expect Oregon to win a hard-fought battle with a really good Oregon State team this weekend, and we have a rematch of Washington, Oregon. I think that would really be exciting. I think championship weekend is really shaping up as an exciting game. By the way, I believe that game, Oregon and Oregon State, is Friday, so don't miss that. The Southeast Conference, again, Georgia and Alabama have wrapped that up. There's no way either one of them can lose. The winner of this will definitely, even with Alabama being 8 right now, I got to believe the winner of this, unless one of these teams stumbles this weekend, which I do not see happening. Alabama does have Auburn. Georgia does have Georgia Tech, 2 longtime rivalry games. They should get there undefeated in the conference. Alabama undefeated overall. Georgia undefeated overall. Well, I'm sorry, Alabama 1 loss overall. Georgia undefeated overall. I think Alabama gets in if they win the championship with 1 loss. Don't stumble against Auburn, though. Nick Saban, this might be one of Nick Saban's best coaching jobs this year, by the way. In the Sun Belt, we've talked a lot about James Madison, ineligible for postseason, which is nonsense. That leaves Coastal Carolina, Appalachian State fighting for the spot in the East for the right to play Troy for the championship. Troy's had a pretty good season this year, 9-2 overall, 8-game win streak for Troy. Coastal Carolina coming off a loss to Army, and App State coming off a big win against James Madison. And there you have all your conferences in FBS 1. Now, let me take this moment before we go into this week's games to talk a little bit about, again, what I propose. Not me, Basement Bob. Don't sue me. The 16-team playoff. In a 16-team playoff, here's what we would potentially be looking at. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 conferences. 10 conference champions get in. 6 at-large teams get in. No buys, no anything. In this case, you'd be looking at the winner of the Atlantic Conference. Let's say it's Tulane. Just for argument's sake. Florida State in the ACC. Texas in the Big 12. Ohio State in the Big 10. Liberty in Conference USA. Toledo in the Mid-American Conference. UNLV in the Mountain West. Washington in the Pac-12. Georgia in the SEC. And because I want to say James Madison should be in there, James Madison in the Sun Belt, because next year they would be eligible. If we were doing a 16-team playoff, there's your conference winners. That leaves us with the next 6 best teams, which in this case would be Michigan, Oregon, Alabama, Missouri, Louisville, and Penn State. Penn State and Ole Miss. And that would still give Oklahoma, LSU, Arizona, Oregon State, if they could move up this week. You still could have some movement in those 6 at-large teams, too. I love this concept, and I don't know why the committee didn't consider it. You'll always, every year, have the 4 best teams in. You'll be giving David a chance against Goliath, like the NCAA tournament in basketball. You'll get to see Liberty play. You'll get to see James Madison play the big boys who will never play them in the regular season. This is not in any way, shape, or form a participation trophy tournament, as some of our SEC elitists have been known to think. When you've got 10 conference champions playing off in this tournament, plus the other 6 best teams in the country. Most of them are going to come from the SEC and the Big Ten, by the way. Always going to come from Power 5 conferences. You're rarely going to have teams, again, with more than 2 losses. I shouldn't say that. You will, in these cases, have teams with more than 2 losses because if these mid-majors, for lack of a better term, were given the chance to play some of these better teams during the course of the year, they're going to lose some games out of conference. But you're still rewarding a conference winner. It's not a participation trophy thing. So we just need to stop that type of thinking. Guys, I'll take whatever topics you want to talk about. I'm going to go through this week's games quickly, the top 25 to start with, and see what other games maybe of interest are out there. With the holiday here, we have some really good games all weekend during the day and in the evening now. So we'll go through these games. And I hope I get a couple extra picks in the cigar box. So we're going to have to do some DraftKings this week. Ole Miss and Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. Mississippi State's a 10-point favorite. Be careful here with this 10 points here. I like Ole Miss to win this game, but be careful laying the 10. This might be a good over bet, 54.5. Tennessee will play Oklahoma on the road on Friday at 12 o'clock. TCU's not very good. I don't think 10 points and Oklahoma State is a bad bet, to be honest with you. Also on Friday at 12, Iowa will play Nebraska. Nebraska's a 2.5-point favorite. I like Matt Rule. I like what he's done here. Nebraska needs the game to get bowl eligible, and so does Mississippi State, by the way, and so does TCU. So that's something to think about during these games. They need the victories to get bowl eligible. Iowa really nothing to play for. They've wrapped up the West. This could be a spot where Nebraska gets a nice win as a 2.5-point favorite and gets bowl eligible in Matt Rule's first year. And I think that would be a good step in the right direction, especially when you consider all the hype that Deion's team and Colorado got. They're not going bowling, guys. Matt Rule was actually one of those losers to Colorado during all that hysteria during their 3-game winning streak to start. Matt Rule had a good chance to be the guy who's got his program a little bit firmer on the ground as this year has gone on. Tulane will play UTSA, as I said. That'll be on Friday. This is a great matchup, guys. Tulane's 3.5. I love Jeff Traylor in this UTSA game, but I really like Tulane. And if Pratt's healthy, I'm all over Tulane in this game. I'll get to your comments as soon as I get through the games till Saturday, and then we'll take a look. Missouri will play Arkansas. Sam Pittman just got extended. He'll keep his job at Arkansas. Maybe that stimulates this team. Missouri wants to cap off what's been a great season for them. A couple tough losses will keep them out of championship consideration. But it's a team still with a chance to go to a good bowl game, maybe even the Sugar Bowl. Who knows? But they're a 9-point favorite on the road. Watch out for Arkansas keeping this close. But I'd like Missouri to win. Texas Tech and Texas, again, longtime rivalry from the old Southwest Conference, which will no longer be played as Texas heads to the SEC. Texas is a 14-point favorite. Texas badly needs some style points here. I think Texas routes Texas Tech here. Penn State and Michigan State, I'd stay away from this game. It's a 21-point spread for Penn State on the road. They're going to win the game. Oregon State at 8:30 Friday night on Fox. Great game. Stay up and watch this one. Oregon, a 14-point favorite. I got to like the points here. I think Oregon will win. Oregon State's played really good football this year. Tough loss last week. They still can be spoilers here. And this is another rivalry, longtime rivalry, that's going away after this year. Watch out for Oregon State. They've had a chip on their shoulder about this whole situation. And we'll see what they have in their pocket for Friday. Found my info on X and posted that JFK segment. Love this show. Thanks, Ed. I swear to God, anybody could tie these two things together. JFK assassination and the Michigan scandal. You're the best, bud. I'm glad you found. Please, I hope you're following me on Twitter. One thing I have trouble doing, I've got myself over 2,000 followers on Facebook. I can't get the Twitter thing going. I can't get the YouTube thing going. I got some good, the shows are all shared there. I just don't know how to. I don't know how to share shows. I don't know how to build an audience on Twitter or YouTube. And so I've concentrated where I know how to do it, and that's here where we're getting. My shows get. I mean, during the course of a week with all my shows, 4,000 or 5,000 views. I don't think that's bad. I'm not Joe Rogan, but we're having some fun. Saturday, Notre Dame and Stanford. Stanford, they played better than we thought. Very weird, by the way. Even Dave Clawson at Wake Forest, the head coach at Wake Forest, Sam Hartman's former coach, thought it was a little weird, the ceremony they gave Sam Hartman at Notre Dame last Saturday. He's only been there for like an hour, and they give him a big going away party. Very weird. The big game, Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan is a 3-point favorite at home. I love Ohio State. And I'll just say in a couple words, Ryan Day's due. Kent McCord has played better. He's played mostly mistake-free football. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. shows up big against this really good Michigan defense. And I think Ohio State's improved defense keeps J.J. McCarthy and this running game in check. And I think it'll be an interesting game. Maybe one not to bet at all, but I like Ohio State plus 3 here. Kentucky and Louisville, game with important repercussions for Louisville. They need this win if they want to have a chance to somehow come from way outside for this playoff. Don't see how it can happen. But a good in-state rivalry. I won't be betting this game, but I like Louisville to probably cover here. Kentucky is kind of falling apart here after midseason, similar to last year. LSU and Texas A&M. Again, not that much to play for there. Daniel's probably looking to pad his stats for this Heisman Trophy, and they're very good. 3,500 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, 1,014 yards rushing, and 10 touchdowns. The numbers are probably better than either Bo Nix or are they? Where's Bo Nix? Where's Mr. Nix? How much time we got here? 10 minutes. Bo Nix, 3,500 yards passing, 35 touchdowns. He doesn't have the rushing stats that Daniels has. Is it all about stats, though, the Heisman? It shouldn't it be the best player? It shouldn't all be about just gaudy stats. And maybe that is the best player. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Alabama and Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Alabama 14 on the road. Auburn lost last week to, as we talked about a couple times, to New Mexico State last week. Hugh Freeze hasn't done a bad job. They're going to a bowl game. He's could finish with an upset here at 500 in the SEC. Alabama's got everything to play for here. They should win this game handily. Arizona should handle it. Arizona State. This is one of the hottest teams in college football. Arizona. Jed Finch had done a great job here when he was on the verge of getting fired after his first 2 years at Arizona. This team has played some great football since about the latter part of September on. BYU at Oklahoma State. BYU gets bowl eligible with a win. Oklahoma State's played really good football, except for UCF a couple of weeks ago. That hurt them. That hurt Texas. Because Texas is their likely opponent in the Big 12 championship game, unless some crazy stuff happens this weekend. I like Oklahoma State here. Pretty big. Tennessee with Vanderbilt coming in. Tennessee should win. Big point spread, though, 27. Be careful. Liberty gets UTEP. Liberty, again, 16.5 on the road. UTEP not very good. Be careful. Liberty will win this game. Washington State. This is another rivalry game that's going to go away. Washington's a 16.5 point favorite. They need to win this game, but they don't need to really, I guess an impressive win would help them because they've struggled. In a lot of people's minds, they've struggled. They're 11-0. And you are what your record says you are, like Bill Parcells said. But I think Washington State could use some style, or Washington could use some style points over Washington State. Washington State looking to get bowl eligible. Not going to happen. They're not going to win this game, but they might keep it close as their season just imploded after September. Florida State and Florida. Again, Jordan Travis, I want to say that backwards all the time, is out. Their fifth-year senior quarterback will lead the way now and going forward. Florida, not a good year under Billy Napier. His job is on the line. They could get bowl eligible here with a win here. I do think Florida State has enough to win this game. The one I'm going to wonder about is whether they can beat Louisville in the ACC championship game. Georgia goes to Georgia Tech in a long-time rivalry game. Georgia Tech with a competitive year, but Georgia's just been firing on all cylinders. It's tough to cover this 24-point spread on the road, but again, Georgia should win this game fairly easily. South Carolina with another rivalry game against Clemson. Clemson's a 7.5-point favorite on the road. Watch out for South Carolina here. This is a dangerous spot for them. They will get bowl eligible with a win. Beating Clemson would be a little bit of a salve for the disappointing season they've had for the most part. Spencer Rattler's last game with SC, I believe, and I think they could pull off the upset here. So that's an upset special for you. Iowa State and Kansas State. I like Kansas State to win here. They played very well late in the season. I like them to beat Iowa State, and they still have a shot to get to the championship game if Oklahoma State falters. NC State with a good year, 8-3, 5-2 in the ACC, and North Carolina, who's imploded the second half of the season. They still have Drake May, and they're a 2.5-point favorite here. Be careful. NC State is a live underdog in this game. Any other games? Let's see. Let me go through FBS real quick. And by the way, Albany State is on a bye this week here locally. They are playing in their conference's championship tournament, which they were able to put one together. They're the 5th seed, and we'll be rooting them on next week. We'll talk more about them next week. This week, I don't have we already got scores. Other games of note: Miami, Boston College. Miami 10.5 on the road. This Miami team has been so up and down. I can't lay 10.5 against even a bad Boston College team. Both these teams should go bowling. Memphis and Temple. Memphis still has something to play for. Toledo, Central Michigan. Central Michigan trying to get bowl eligible, and Toledo's got their championship game spot already. UT, we talked about UTSA and Tulane already. Don't care about that game. Don't care about that game. Air Force and Boise State. Important game. Air Force has gone in the tank. I backed them all year long. 3 in a row they've lost. They get Boise State at Boise State on the blue field. Both teams with a chance to get in that Mountain West championship game. Should be an interesting matchup there to keep an eye on. Who else we got here we like to look at? UConn and UMass playing each other this week. That ought to be a battle in futility, let me tell you. Pittsburgh plays Duke. Duke will they're already bowl eligible. They should get a win here. Houston and UCF. Tough first seasons in the Big 12 for both these teams. UCF does have a chance to get a bowl eligible with a win. I like UCF in this game. Navy and SMU. Navy, with Army coming up, needs one win out of those two games to get bowl eligible, most likely. SMU with a really good season, 9-2, 7-0. Their first, not their first year. This isn't their first year in the AC, I don't think. But anyway, they're in the mix. Texas San Antonio's first year. So they're still in the mix. So this should be an SMU victory. Who else do we like here? Wake Forest and Syracuse. Dino Babers fired rightfully or wrongfully. They haven't had a lot of success. He had one really good year. The last 2 years, he's gotten off to strong start. 6-0 last year, lost his last 6. 4-0 this year, and they've gone 1-6 since. Just too much for Dino to overcome. Really good person, good football coach. Sad to see him go. They can get bowl eligible this week as well with a win over Wake, who has not had a very good year this year. Both teams 1-6 in the ACC. What other games are we interested in here? Colorado goes to Utah. Utah should destroy them. Colorado is really limping to the finish line here. 4-7 after 3-0 starts. So they're 1-7 the last 2 months and 1-7 in the Pac-12. Bad. And we knew that. I thought this team could go 6-6. I said that after 3-0 start and all the hysteria, and nothing's changed my mind. Arizona State we talked about. Most of these other games we've talked about at some length. We're going to wrap it up here, guys. It's been a great show. Ed in Columbus, Bill Pulver, the rest of you guys that contributed, I do appreciate that as always. And your guys' participation in the show makes it go. Ed, you've been tremendous on the last few shows, Sunday and today. So thank you for that. Thank you for your patronage, if you will. Guys, Keith Engel, I'll be back here next week with the College Sports Huddle. Then we'll have we'll have some scheduling notes next week to talk about. I'll be on Friday morning with the Are You Serious show with the Mad New Yorker. No idea what we're going to talk about. It could be just a Black Friday free-for-all. Bring a topic and let's argue it out. And also, we'll see you Sunday with the Stream of Consciousness. Guys, have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the flip side. Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk. See you later.